The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and a hotel room in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri. It's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes talk about what they missed at GenCon 50, and it was quite a lot. Then they review CMON's The Godfather. And finally, in a special Dukes quadruple take, they look back at their reviews of Via Nebual and Scythe. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
Man, I apologize to all of our listeners out there. Between the and the length of the intro, people probably got hungry, had to go to the bathroom, had to tuck their kids in at night. Hey.
I don't apologize for my strong, powerful voice, Sean.
So this
Not
is
one bit.
This is episode 157, which we're calling the Fogfather. The Fogfather, thanks to Kyle Kelly, who named it over on our Board Game Geek Guild. Of course, we're talking about The Godfather, the board game, Corleone's Empire from CMON, and also looking back at Via Nebual. Scythe doesn't quite figure in there, but that's okay. Well, actually, it kind of did. If there was a prolonged explanation where you could include, because basically there's a lot of fog in Jacob's art in Scythe.
Okay.
All right.
Huh.
Anyway, the Fogfather, Kyle Kelly. By the way, we name all of our episodes with help from our amazing listeners over in our Board Game Geek Guild. Definitely go check out Guild 2008, where we put up a Dukes on Deck every week. Although this is our last weekly episode, Alex, so I guess we'll be putting up every other week, where people can go help name the episode, contribute to discussions about the games we'll be talking about, and so on. And we'll give you the rest of the top 6 at the end of the episode. But yeah, as regular listeners would know, we're kind of in a transition here, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm in a big-time transition. I am, as mentioned in the intro, in an extended stay America here in St. Louis, here for the next few days while I'm getting my apartment settled. I've already started work, as folks may have remembered. I announced last week that I am the new marketing guy. By the way, Sean, I've given myself a title. I think that you'll, I think you saw this and chuckled a little. Yeah, Chief Noisemaker. I am Chief Noisemaker over at Grey Fox Games, which, as you know, is a very fitting title in so many ways.
Yes.
By the way, I as part of the new job, I had a hard time getting some discussion topics by you this week, Sean. I was hoping to get in a top 6 favorite things about deception, murder in Hong Kong. That didn't fly. Favorite publishers with both Grey and Fox in their names. That didn't go either. So, oh well. I'll keep working at it.
Would have had to have both Grey and Fox, not or.
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay.
It's a top 1 list.
Okay, great, perfect. Well, I will say that right now your internet connection is much better than it was 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I thought it was a heartfelt comment about, I was really worried about you. I needed you to be stable. And what you really meant was, I needed your internet connection to be stable.
Yes, yeah. So you forked out the extra money to get the upgraded internet at your extended stay hotel.
That's right. This podcast also brought to you by Extended Stay America. Extended Stay, when you need a place to stay for a little while, Extended Stay is here for you. That's not their slogan. Oh. I don't know what their slogan is.
Okay. Well, anyway, this is also then the last of our weekly episodes. So we're going to be silent next week, although we'll be dropping the your Chris Kluwe Patreon interview. What's it called now? Holding Court?
Holding Court with Mean Duke Alex.
Yeah. So that'll be dropping next week. So we'll still kind of have... right now, the plan is at least 3 releases a month, and we've got some plans possibly for more. Who knows? But as far as the flagship podcast, we're done with the weekly stuff, Alex.
Yeah, really, it's gonna be weird, right?
It's gonna be weird, but on the bright side, I'm just gonna play all the Combat Commander. So
that could be your secondary podcast that fills in the weeks. Sean,
oh yeah.
How did Sean's Combat Commander experience go this week?
Oh man, I gotta tell you, all the hardcore wargamers would just be tearing me apart. Be like, that's stupid. You're an idiot. Oh, Yeah. Anyway, so a little bit of show business here. First, we had all of these third-year anniversary episode contests that we need to announce some winners for, right?
Oh, yeah. And we're going to spread these out because there's a lot of them.
So just here at the top of the show, we did a social media contest to get a copy of Vegas Wits and Wagers, which is not readily available right now. There's going to be, actually, there's a Kickstarter up now for it. So you can go check that out on Kickstarter. This is from North Star Games. Really cool. We talked about it a couple times on the show, and we're giving away a copy courtesy North Star Games. And the winner is Marty Warmuth. How about just her Twitter handle at Fluffy Meeple? She's a Punchboard Media contributor, and she was our random drawing on Twitter and Facebook. She entered via Twitter. So congrats to you, Marty.
Warmuth rhymes with vermouth.
Is that what her thing says?
I'm going to pretend it is because that'd be cool. You could have a drink named after you. You could call it the Warmuth Vermouth.
Okay. Well, we're just handing out all sorts of life lessons here today. And if you want to head on over to dukesofdice.com and or our YouTube channel, we've got a new video from Alex Singh. He has the new brief series where he does an overview of some heavier games. This week or this month, we've got Ortis Regni up, so definitely go check that out. Alex, thanks for creating that awesome content. Not you, Alex. This gets really confusing every time.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I create some good stuff, too, this week.
No,
Come on now.
Sure, but I'm just not acknowledging that right now.
Oh.
So
right,
I'll acknowledge,
I see how it is.
I may or may not acknowledge that some other time.
Okay.
So, also, if you're not aware, the Dukes have a Patreon campaign going. If you go to patreon.com/Dukes of Dice, you can join a bunch of amazing people who are helping support the podcast. And we really appreciate that. Just want to give a shout out to a couple new people. Charles Lacasse, who is a brand new Knight of the Duchy. And we have a brand new Duke, Bart Morrison. So thanks to those two. Really appreciate that. And then also just want to highlight two patrons who have actually increased their pledges, possibly because they want to maintain the level of monthly support, even though we're doing half the content. Either way, that's fantastic. So Ryan Quick, who is a former Duke, we're now going to call a Super Duke, Alex. A Super Duke.
I don't know, but we got to think about this term a little more. We're good at naming things. We gotta put some thought into this. Maybe.
Uber Duke.
I don't know about that. I definitely don't know about that.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm trying to give all the credit that's due here, but you're just withholding, and just classic Alex fashion, just withholding love.
Hey, if it was my arch nemesis and rival Steve O'Rourke, then that would be a fair criticism. But I love all of our listeners equally.
Okay.
Every one of them.
Anyway, Ryan, thank you. You're, in my heart, you're a Super Duke, Ryan. And then also Mario Diaz just edited his as well. So just want to say thank you for everyone out there that supports us on Patreon, especially in this transition time. We really appreciate it. So thank you very much. But hey, let's talk about some board games, Alex. That's kind of the point, right?
Yep. Yes, indeed.
I mean, I'm sure you're going to kind of talk about the new situation you have out there, wrapped up in some board game talk. So why don't you lead us off?
Sure. So basically, immediately after GenCon, after I got done with my final flip shift, I had flipped my final ship. Kane Klenko, by the way, very nice, gave me a signed Flip Ships playmat.
Yeah, I saw that. That was cool.
Really cool. Really cool. Kane's an awesome guy. Loved working with him at the con, and loved that he was able to put his trust in me to demo that game properly. And yeah, I had a ton of fun meeting him and playing stuff with him. So that was really cool. Hopped in a car and drove over to St. Louis just in time for the eclipse. And I saw the total eclipse of the sun. We were in the path of totality, a little bit south of St. Louis in Festus. That was awesome. Has nothing to do with games, though. So basically, I've been apartment hunting the rest of the week. Found somewhere with an old college friend, lives in the same building. It's downtown. Should be pretty nice. I'm excited about that. I've been posting stuff as I've been going around St. Louis. It's a foodie town. There's a lot of good food here, a lot of good local food. Sean, there's something called toasted ravioli, which is basically like deep fried ravioli.
Yeah.
Real good stuff.
It exists elsewhere.
Okay. Well, it's done best here, apparently.
Oh.
And yeah, shots fired. No. And then the other one, gooey butter cake. Gooey butter cake is really tasty. However, Sean didn't see any of these because he has switched to actively ignoring me on the Dukes chat whenever I post something about how stuff's awesome here.
Yep.
Sorry about that, Sean.
Yeah, well, what can you do?
A lot of good craft breweries here, too. So hopefully the Draft Mechanic folks, our friends over there, will stop by, and I can show them a few nice ones if they haven't been already. Urban Chestnut's pretty good. Schlafly's. Anyway, I'm enjoying the town. Wednesday night, Jamie Stegmeyer over at Stonemeyer Games invited me over to his weekly game night. And that was super cool. Sat down and played The Captain is Dead with him. That's the first game I'll talk about. This is a cooperative game where it's Star Trek-esque. The captain has been killed as aliens besiege the ship, and you take on the roles of different crew members trying to fix the jump drive and warp to safety. Meanwhile, every turn, a card will flip that will damage one of your systems, or bad things will happen in general. It might knock down your shields. It might send aliens on board that injure you. Stuff's going crazy on this ship, and you're doing your best to kind of keep your head above water. Sean, have you tried this one yet?
I haven't. I know Rory at Empire has tried it and wants me to play it. I'm really excited for it. The components are really cool. They have they're standees, but they're kind of like this clear plastic and then painted on look that looks really sweet. Yeah, I'm curious to try this.
Yeah, the standees are really nice. The components are really nice. And the game plays really well. It has a feel of Pandemic. It's kind of Pandemic adjacent. It's not a clone by any means. It's not... if it were Pandemic Star Trek, I guess that would be kind of the game you might make, actually. But it has this cool cartoony art, looks great components-wise, and is a lot of fun. Has a ton of variability. I think they have... I couldn't tell you the number of roles. Maybe 12? That may be too many, but a lot of different roles in the game. I had a choice between Ensign and Chief Engineering Chief, and I went with Chief Engineer. It's cool though, Sean. I think you're going to dig this. You'll see the similarities to Pandemic as you play. The thematic nature of it's a lot of fun though. Running around the ship's a good amount of fun, and yeah, I think you'll like this game a lot.
Did you use your best Scotty impersonation throughout the game?
I did not do that.
What a disappointment.
Well, next time. I'll get him next time, Sean.
Okay. Cool. No, that sounds really cool. Like I said, I'm definitely interested in checking that out. So one of the few games that I picked up, because I didn't buy a lot of games at GenCon, there was a Combat Commander Mediterranean that was in CSI's Ding and Dent sale because I love Combat Commander. A couple other games, but one of them that I wanted to pick up because I'm a huge Buffy fan. Mariah's a huge Buffy fan, and that is Legendary Buffy. Okay, so it's not Legendary Encounters, which is kind of interesting. I assumed it would have been, but it's not. It is just a very typical Marvel Legendary. It introduces a new mechanic, light and dark. Basically, there's a light-dark track, and you can go either up 3 light or down 3 dark, and depending on where the light is, certain cards will react differently. So if light is up, this card might let you just draw a card, but if it's dark, it might give you extra attack and buy or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. And there are ways to manipulate the light and dark track. Like, for example, the base, we're calling her Maria Hill, because in Legendary, Maria Hill is just the buy that you can always do that just gives you more buy. So in this case, it is a new Slayer, because later on in the show, there's a bunch of new Slayers. And anyway, so you can, instead of playing them for their buy power, you can just discard them to increase the light. So there are ways to kind of interact with that. It was fine. It was good. I'm going to keep it because I like Buffy. I wish it were a Legendary Encounters game. I think that would have made it a little bit better. It uses all still footage from the show, from the actual TV show. I thought it was going to be comic art, because there's a bunch of post Buffy comics that are actually continuations. So it's like season 8, season 9, season 10 of Buffy that's in comic form. And so I thought they would have done that, because I don't know, I kind of like what they did with Alien Legendary Encounters, how it's the drawn comic art instead of photos from the movie. So I kind of wish they had done that. But the first scenario that we played at GenCon with Nick and his buddy Ray was really mean and really punishing. And we died horribly. But I'm interested to play more. It's got some rough edges, like I mentioned, but it's still Buffy, and I like Buffy. I own an old roll and move Buffy game designed by Rob Davio that isn't great, but I'll keep it because it's Buffy. So yeah, that's Legendary Buffy. Don't worry, Alex, you won't have to play it.
Hey, guess what I've never seen a single episode of, ever?
Shocker.
Buffy. I've never seen anything.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, next game I'll talk about is another game I got in at Jamie Stegmeyer's place. It was Flamme Rouge. This is the bicycle racing game just put out by Stronghold Games. A game, Sean, that you were pretty sure I was going to like a lot.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the jury has to be kind of out on this one for me for the moment for a very key reason that you'll understand in a second. So, Flamme Rouge, for folks who don't know, you have two bikers kind of working on a team. You have the rouleur and the sprinter. And each turn you're going to draw 4 cards, pick one, basically face up, discard the rest, and reveal the 2 cards. And those cards will determine how they move. If you're one space behind someone on this track, it's a 2-wide track. If you're one space behind them, you will catch up in the slipstream. If you're the lead person, you're going to be kind of doing the work for the group. So you take an exhaustion card, which is a slower version of movement for you. There are hills, which slow down your movement and don't allow slipstreaming. There's downhills, which you can only go so fast, but every card you play makes you go so fast. And you're trying to kind of use teamwork and timing to cross the finish line first. The thing of it is, it's a 2-wide track. And as the rule was taught in this, the rule was if you need to move and there's 2 people blocking you wide, you cannot move past them with a movement card. Sean, as you may know from having played this game, if you have a movement card that moves you past the 2 people blocking, you end up on that space. You don't get blocked by them. It's not downforce rules.
You can move past them.
Yes.
You can't move
not
on
onto them.
But
right.
past them, right.
We were acting as if you stop right behind and lose the rest of that movement.
Oh, yeah.
Makes it hard for people to pass.
Yeah, it's a very different game.
It's a very different game and not as good of a game. So I think I'm going to like this game a lot more when I play with the proper rules. I enjoyed the look of it. I enjoyed the feel of it. I like a lot of what's going on. I can tell mechanically, it's so simple. It's such a simple game mechanically.
Yeah.
And yet it works really well. And it's thematic. I enjoy all of that stuff. I need to play with the proper rules to see if the game itself actually lives up to what I think it's going to live up to. So it's sort of a jury's out on Flamme Rouge, but hey, I've at least kind of sort of tried it. So that's Flamme Rouge.
Was this the Stronghold version that had just come in, or the previous version?
I believe it's the Stronghold version that I played.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So last week we had talked in our GenCon episode about Secrets, which is Bruno Faduti and Eric Lang design. And I was really interested to try this with Mariah because she really liked Masquerade. I think I mentioned this on the episode. She really liked Masquerade, which is another Bruno Faduti card game. And this reminded me in a lot of ways of that, except this has teams and it's a little bit less chaotic. And so just brief refresher, you are either on the CIA, the KGB, or you're a hippie. And the idea is that you and your teammate at the end of the game want to have the most points if you're KGB or CIA. Individually, as the hippie, you want to have the fewest points. If you have the fewest points, you kind of override everyone else and you win. And so there's a little bit of card play. There's some actions that your cards are going to give you, but you draw 2 cards and you choose to give one to another player. They can either accept or reject it. Depending on what it is, some of the cards can be good, some of them can be bad. And I just wanted Mariah to play this because I know she liked Masquerade a lot, and I was not a huge fan of it. I was so on my first play of Secrets, and I think after the second play, I like it maybe slightly more than I did before. I'm not super crazy about it, but Mariah really liked it. And it was actually kind of funny. I knew that she was KGB with me because you reveal your identity to the person on the right. And so I saw hers and I kind of gave her a little nudge and I winked at her. I'm like, yeah, we're together. And every action I took in the game was to her benefit. And the entire time she did not trust me. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, anyway. So she liked it and we'll play it some more. It grew on me just a bit, Alex. Just a bit to at least survive a cull from the collection. So.
Okay, that's good. That's a positive thing, right?
Sure, why not? So yeah, that's Secrets. Worth taking a look at if your group likes social deduction with a little bit of chaos and role switching. I think the role switching is kind of the most annoying part to me because once you figure everything out and then kind of the rug's taken out from under you as you set yourself up, you and your partner. Anyway, I'm going into too much detail, but that's Secrets.
That's part of the game I enjoy the most. Actually, is that chaos and that role switching. And yeah, I'm excited to play that one more. I don't know when I will.
You know what Littlefinger says, right?
What's that?
Chaos is a ladder.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Littlefinger.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Can you imagine? Come when this episode drops, people will have already watched the Game of Thrones season finale. I'm so excited.
I know.
Excited.
Coming up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I will say I was bummed out by last week's episode. It was intense and amazing.
Whoa. Whoa. What are you doing?
Okay.
What are you doing?
I'm not going to spoil anything.
Okay. Jeez. Go on.
I'm not going to spoil anything. There was a huge logical leap that episode took that I did not buy into. Were you on the same page?
Yeah. So, man, we're way off topic here. So basically, everyone's been like teleporting this season. It's kind of like people have been saying it's kind of like in Skyrim, where once you visit a location, you can just fast travel there, which is kind of true. For the most part, I'm like, it's fine. Like, it's the last season. It's the last 2 seasons of the show. It's a shortened season. Like, we've spent plenty of time on the road in the past, but we got to wrap everything up. I'm fine with it. This last week was a little bit. It's
a little much, right?
Yeah, I was pushing it a bit much. So.
All right, I'm gonna get off the Game of Thrones thing to avoid getting murdered by the internet. So
yeah, oh my goodness.
So the last thing I'll talk about is just a little kind of behind the scenes a bit, because it's a little interesting being in a board game publisher, and I don't. Part of the balancing act I'm going to be trying to walk for the rest of my time on this show is, hey, how do you talk about this stuff without shilling? Because a lot of my gaming experience these days is going to be in that context. And so we've already talked about if we're reviewing a Gray Fox game, we may not review one, or it may just be Sean, or it may not happen at all. I don't know how that's going to go. In recent plays, I'm probably less likely to talk about them. But there were a couple of weird moments that this week that struck me as, oh, this is pretty cool. The first one of them being our offices happen to be inside of Miniature Markets. So we're right there. Our warehouse is inside of Miniature Market's warehouse. I walk through their store to get back to my office. By the way, I say my office. The weird thing is my office is not my office at the moment because it's currently being used to store a big order from Alliance. And so there's a whole bunch of just games, just stacks and stacks of games on what's about to be my desk. That's one piece of it. The other one is it's kind of cool getting hauled out to do play testing over lunch on things. Like, hey, do you have a half hour? Let's play test this. My buddy Josh over there, who does game development for Gray Fox, gotten along really well with him so far, and it's interesting. So far, it's interesting. It's interesting to see the process of a game from that side. I've play tested stuff before, but to hear how a game developer thinks about it. And so this gets into the other conflict of interest thing. I think it'd be really interesting to have him on for a holding court, but I think that's immediately a conflict of interest, and maybe I need to find someone else who does game development to kind of get into that. I don't know. We posted something on the Guild for one of those Patreon interview episodes. Is it weird to have Suzanne on? And I think the consensus is no, that's awesome. Suzanne's a new host over at the Dice Tower and obviously does all the other crazy cool stuff she does. Right.
By the way, people don't know, big shout out to Suzanne and Mandy, because they're basically hosting every other week of the Dice Tower podcast, which is awesome. Listen to their first episode. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
super
absolutely.
Excited. Super excited.
Yeah, super excited for both of them. I've gotten to know Mandy a bit better in recent cons, and Suzanne obviously has been there with us since almost the very, very beginning. So really excited for all good things in both of their lives. Any case, yeah, it's just a little surreal. It's a little surreal, A, being back to work, because I hadn't been back to work in like 8 months, and B, being back to work in that kind of context. So it's fun. It's been really fun so far, and I'm enjoying it. That's all I want to say.
I have a proposed solution.
Yes.
From now on, anytime you say Gray Fox or one of their games, I'll just bleep it out in the edit.
Interesting. We'll talk more about that later, maybe.
Yeah, think about that.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So in any case, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's head on over to the news desk. All right, first up in news, we got the GenCon numbers in, and Sean, this is some pretty impressive stuff from GenCon 50.
Yeah, so this was the first year that they completely sold out of badges before the con ever started. A lot of times you can just kind of come to the door, I guess, and get badges if you needed them in the past. But this year, the 4-day passes, the 1-day passes, they all sold out. So we think it's about 60,000 in terms of badges. So 60,000 people actually attended this year. There's also the turnstile count, which if you notice when you were walking in the exhibitor hall, there were, staff that was basically doing the little clicker, the little counter machine things. And so they had 208,000 turnstile count. So that's up 4% from last year. And here's the crazy thing, right? That 208,000, that's missing people. Because as far as I can tell, that's just people going into the exhibitor hall, right? So and at a certain point, they don't do that all day, because then there would be people coming in and out and it screws up the count. So it's very interesting is the bottom line there. So some other numbers, there were a total of 500 plus exhibitors, 19,000 different events, different ticketed events. I mean, just keeping the database for that. I went one night to go over to Lucas Oil Stadium to do the 24-hour gaming thing. I went over to buy a ticket, and it's just all these people manning these computers, maintaining this database, selling these tickets. 19,000 different events. Like, just the sheer logistical nightmare of organizing that is incredible. Just incredible. There's also some charity events that they do. They raise money for child advocates. They raised $26,000. And so since GenCon went to Indianapolis, they've raised over $250,000 for charity, which is, I think that's pretty cool. So Adrian Swartout, the CEO of GenCon, he said, "Our team is thrilled to continue setting new records. We made a decision early in planning GenCon 50 to optimize the attendee experience while still continuing to grow the convention to new attendance levels. By adding the field level of Lucas Oil Stadium, improving space planning, and carefully restructuring attendance thresholds by badge type, we realized record gains while maintaining a world-class experience for attendees." And it's hard for me to say, Alex, without having been there last year, but I can envision how helpful having access to Lucas Oil Stadium was.
Oh yeah.
For crowd control purposes, keeping that down.
No, what I'll say, Sean, is from seeing pictures of past Gen Cons versus this Gen Con, the experience between the two, it was less crowded than I was expecting it to be.
Right.
In general.
Right. I never felt, even like on the busiest on Saturday, I never felt that it was completely like wall-to-wall people in the exhibitor hall, even at peak times. I mean, certainly it was very crowded. Certainly sometimes there would be traffic jams, but I never had the like wall-to-wall, because I've experienced that. Like at San Diego Comic-Con, I've experienced like wall-to-wall. You're moving like 2 steps every, 10 seconds. But yeah, so I think that was pretty solid. And I think, and we've kind of talked since then, that we're going to plan out next year's Gen Con a little bit different. You were obviously there with Renegade. I was just kind of there soaking it in. I didn't have a lot planned. I think it's possible next year we'll have some booth time at the Dice Tower. We'll have some booth time maybe with a publisher, just so we can kind of tell listeners, hey, if you're going to be at Gen Con and you want to meet up with us, you can come by this booth and just say hi. Because there were a lot of impromptu meetings. There were a lot of, walking by and, hey, you're wearing a Duke shirt. And a lot of people reach out to us like, oh, hey, how can we, is there going to be some kind of meetup? And that's the thing, too. We may actually have some actual meetup event that we'll plan out and have at a bar or something. I don't know. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I think we should absolutely do that. And I'm going to be busy as well. I'm going to be there in a different capacity, in a frenzied capacity, I think. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be making time as best I can to do some cool stuff.
So one of the things that we talked about last week was basically how overwhelming it was. You couldn't see everything. It was interesting because there was announcements being made, like when Fantasy Flight had their in-flight, which is kind of like their state of Fantasy Flight they do every year at Gen Con. You're not there finding out about it unless you're actually there in the in-flight. So there are people online learning about stuff that we're not learning about while we're actually at Gen Con. And so we just kind of want to take a little bit of time to kind of talk about some of the news. Maybe we touched on it a little bit last week, but we've kind of fleshed it out a little bit this week. So the big thing that we had talked about from Renegade, because they had this big announcement, this big secret game that was under wraps, and that was Clank in Space. And we've talked about briefly, you worked at the Renegade booth. You guys sold through that like nothing, right?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. Ex Libris was a little hotter from my perception of things, but I think we also had fewer Ex Libris than we did of Space Clank. I actually don't know the exact numbers of that for sure. I know that they had some Space Clank in reserve for Saturday. Ex Libris was gone by the end of Friday. Now, and I also know in the 10, 15 minutes it took to sell through both of those on Friday morning that Ex Libris went faster than Space Clank did.
Yeah.
I don't know what that says about things. Both of those games, insanely hot. And by the way, both of those games, I didn't play. So, worked the booth, but did not play either.
So, I haven't played Clank in Space. Our buddy Nick picked up a copy. He and Len played it Wednesday night at Duke's Dice Game Night, and Mariah was there too, and she jumped in it. She likes deck builders. She likes trains, for example. So I said, here, give this a try. And as she was playing, I came over to check it out. Taking a look at it, I am not crazy about how this game looks. I really like Clank. I really like the card art. I really like the graphic design of the board. This didn't quite meet up to my expectations for a Renegade game. The art on all the cards was a little off. It was parodies of a bunch of different sci-fi tropes, which is fine, and that's kind of what I would expect for this type of game. But I wasn't crazy about the art, and then the board was kind of boring. The regular Clank board, I think, is really cool. It's really immersive, and this one felt very, very sterile, and it didn't evoke kind of this adventuring spirit that I feel like regular Clank does. So yeah, I was kind of disappointed to see that. I know doesn't mean I'm not going to play it. It probably doesn't mean I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm probably going to enjoy the game, but I was just a little underwhelmed by how it looked on the table.
From what you can tell mechanically, do you think you're likely to enjoy it more or less?
I don't know. There are some differences that Nick was telling me about with the gameplay. I don't know. I feel like mechanically I'll probably enjoy it as much. I don't think it'll be too much of a variance, but as far as that full immersive experience, I'll probably prefer regular Clank when all is said and done. But I'll give it its fair shake for sure.
Very good. Fantasy Flight Games had something that I'm sure you were salivating over, Sean.
Oh,
Star Wars Legion.
I hate them so much, Alex. So much. So they announced this. So Legion is an organic, fast-paced movement, streamlined combat, has innovative mechanics, inviting players to become commanders of clashing armies on a war-torn battlefield of the Galactic Civil War. 33 unpainted plastic miniatures, including iconic characters like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, form a blank canvas for any player to create a unique army, fight for the Rebel Alliance or the Galactic Empire, and experience the epic battles of Star Wars on their tabletop. So, all right, I've got some serious issues here. Well, that's obvious, but my issue with Star Wars Legion is this is a tabletop miniatures game. You need to paint them, so there's a hobby aspect to it. You need to have a nice table. That's fine. That's all fine. The miniatures are different, a different scale than the Imperial Assault miniatures, and that's for obvious reasons. They want to be able to sell this game, right? They don't want people to bring over Imperial Assault miniatures into this game. So, I mean, if you want to do that at home with your buddies, that's fine. But if you're going to want to play in any sort of organized play, and for a lot of people, that's a big way to experience these tabletop play, or these tabletop games, is through organized play. You're not going to be able to do that. And that's it's a little frustrating to me. It's a little frustrating that they had this game, they had Imperial Assault, which had an adventure mode, and it also had a skirmish mode, right? And people have invested in it because it gave them that tactical skirmish gameplay. Now, this is on more of a squad-based level, right? But it's still kind of, I don't know, it still kind of rubs me the wrong way. Now, that's not to say I don't want to play this and I don't want to paint these miniatures. What it does do, and something I'm going to have to think about, is, well, I probably can't do this and Rune Wars. And when it comes down to Terranoth versus Star Wars, thematically, that's a no-brainer, right? Terranoth is fine. Generic fantasy. I'm really excited about the gameplay in Rune Wars miniatures. I think it's an amazing system. This system, and I actually got to watch some demos. Like the demo tables were just incredibly busy. So I stood around and I watched, and it's a really cool system. It uses kind of not the flight path system, but it uses our articulable. Is that the right word? Articulable rulers. Rulers that have these little bendy points on them, and a really streamlined movement system. Basically, like you take a squad leader, you move him what you're allowed, and then you have to place everyone else in coherency around him. So you don't have to measure individually for each figure necessarily. Yeah, I don't know. Man, I don't know, Alex. I don't know what to do.
I think literally if they put Star Wars on anything, you will buy it.
Well, and that's the thing. It looks good. Like, the miniatures look good. I've got a bunch of terrain already. It's $89 MSRP for the core set. It's going to be coming out in the fourth quarter of 2017. And of course they're going to just be pumping stuff out for this. So it's just a tough call. It's a really tough call. And I'm probably going to pick this up, and I'm probably going to, I don't know. But I can't do everything, right? And I think Fantasy Flight's fine with that. They're fine with someone not being able to buy everything that they produce. They just want to put stuff out that's going to entertain, or that's going to have some interest for everybody.
It's tough being you, Sean.
But I'll tell you where they're not going to get my money, and that's Twilight Imperium 4.
Why is that, Sean?
Well, it's got kind of the similar issue here. It's got a $150 MSRP, which isn't, I don't have an objection to that. Because it has Twilight Imperium 3 with a lot of modifications, refinement. It has some of the expansion elements. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know what? I've got a great copy of TI3 that I've blinged out, that I have all these specialty storage stuff that makes setup and breakdown easy. It's not worth it to me to get rid of that to play a slightly revised version, if that makes sense. I mean, it's not a game that we play a lot. I mean, it's been probably a year and a half, 2 years since I played last. And so certainly I'll play someone else's TI4, but I am more than happy to pull off my TI3 collection off the shelf on occasion. And I don't know, that may change if I play TI4.
Womp, 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 womp. People were reselling those for a lot of money on eBay.
Yeah. And the thing is,
that was a good business to be in.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They're, it's going to be available in quarter 4. So people can pay an extra couple $100 if they want now, but it's like, well, just wait a couple months. Like, you can wait. Play TI3 a couple more times before then. So, going back to Star Wars, this one really interested me. Fantasy Flight is re-releasing the West End Games Star Wars RPG that came out. Well, this is the 30th anniversary edition, right? So it came out in the 80s. Is my math correct? I think so.
Yes, your math is correct.
So I picked this up at Disneyland when I was in 6th grade. My family took me and my buddy Mitch to Disneyland. It was 6th or 7th grade, and we just did the Star Tours ride. And at this point, I am a so fan of Star Wars, right? Like, I've watched the movies. I enjoy it. It's fine. We get out of Star Tours, we go into the gift shop, which is all Star Wars stuff, and I see this role-playing game, and I decide to pick it up. And I forgot this. I forgot all about this. I think that was the moment when I transitioned into being a hardcore Star Wars fan, because this book had so much information that I wasn't aware of. Like, Palpatine was never used in the original trilogy. Like, that name, Emperor Palpatine, was never actually used. He was just the Emperor. And that was the first time I had seen the name Palpatine, right? And so I'm reading this, voraciously. And that was when I kind of transitioned to being like a huge hardcore Star Wars fan. So this looks really interesting to me, more from a collector's standpoint, because I have no idea where that book is. It's gone. But it's $60, which gets you the main book and then also a source book, which I never actually had the source book before. So I just think it's interesting that it just seems like an odd choice for Fantasy Flight to bring out, especially since they have their own role-playing system. But I'm interested, like I said, from a collector's standpoint. I think the weight or the age of the game might show a bit, but I'm interested to own it. So
I think you're right in that the extended universe of Star Wars tends to really get people hooked. I remember going to the library as a kid and getting those stories that would continue the story,
right,
would move it forward. I really dug that growing up.
So the other thing for Fantasy Flight is they showed off a prototype of a new edition. And I mean, you sense a pattern here, Alex?
Yep.
A new edition of Sid Meier's Civilization, A New Dawn. They previously had a Sid Meier's Civ board game. I own it, plus an expansion I picked up in a math trade. I've never played it. So they were just kind of showing this off. It's not clear when it's going to be available. But yeah, kind of just rehashing some stuff. But hey, their business model seems to be working. Their booth was crazy. Like half of their booth was room for people to stand in a snaking line, essentially. Yeah. And it was, I mean, there are people in it all con. And they had enough product to keep moving stuff. You know, if it was like Legend of the Five Rings, that sold out really quickly. But I mean, I'm pretty sure they had TI4 all the way through Saturday or Sunday, I think.
Possible.
Yeah. So they weren't joking around. Also, last week, we had mentioned that Restoration Games would be bringing out Fireball Island. It's actually going to get renamed Fireball Island, The Curse of Volcar, which apparently is the name of the volcano in it, right? This is originally a Milton Bradley game that came out in 1986, and it had this like vacuum form volcano, and it was just kind of a simple roll and move game, right? So to the modern gamer, there's not a whole lot there for you. But of course, this is going to get the restoration treatment. And so you've got Rob Davio, you've got J.R. Honeycutt, and then Justin from Restoration Games that are going to be kind of putting this through the ringer to create something that, based on their track record so far, I mean, I think this is going to be pretty cool. I've got a lot of faith in this team. And what's cool is they have an agreement with Game Trays to make the new vacuum form volcano for the game. And again, of course, Game Trays did the Mechs vs. Minions insert, which was, much lauded because it was a really cool insert. So this game has you returning to Fireball Island after 30 years to see what kind of shenanigans you can get up to. Did you ever play Fireball Island back in the day?
Never, ever.
Yeah, me neither. Kind of bummed. I'd like to give that a shot. But anyway, I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out. Like I said, a lot of faith in this team. So it's a cool news from Restoration Games. Other bit of news, Games Workshop announced Necromunda. Alex, you're a big Necromunda fan?
What is this? I don't know what this is at all.
So Necromunda is an older skirmish-style game where you have a gang in these hives. So these hives are these horrible, terrible cities in the far-flung future of the 40K universe where it's just building upon building upon building. It's thousands of years of development, and these different gangs kind of rule the undercity of the hives. And it's this really cool skirmish-style game where there's some campaign play, some progression. So, Alex, this could scratch that kind of Blood Bowl itch, right? Because you have a team, and this team gets better as time goes on, but it's more combat oriented rather than playing football. Pretty excited for this, but again, it's more miniatures, it's more time painting. I don't know. They didn't give a lot of information other than this is going to happen.
A quick question, Sean. If you had to guess the percentage of your house, like your physical house, that is either miniatures or board games or both, what percentage would that be?
Oh, like 5%.
That's a good amount, though, if you think about it.
Sure. No, it is. It is. Well, yeah. I don't know. I guess if the entire basement... does the entire basement count? Because I've got the video studio, I've got the audio...
And then games you're getting rid of, and I'd say most of the basement counts.
All right, 30%. 30%.
Oh, man. Oh.
Yeah. Because then we got the game room upstairs.
That's rough. That's well, and in fairness, once I get all of my stuff moved from Albuquerque in a couple weeks here, that's going to be a similar situation.
With your 8 games?
I've got more than that. Come on now.
12?
Got more than that.
Okay. I'll just keep shouting out numbers because I'm sure that's fine. Super interesting. Couple other bits of random stuff that was there at the show. We had talked about before how IDW has a bunch of licenses for Atari games, different Atari, old school games. There was Centipede that was there. Our buddy Jeremy got to demo the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. Same copy and paste my earlier comments about all the other miniature stuff. There's the new Thing, the Thing game from USAopoly, which is there. Are you a fan of the Thing movie?
Never seen it.
John Carpenter. Oh, okay. Not surprised. Why am I surprised? Remember the Pandemic Legacy demo? It was kind of cool. It was like this quarantined tent. Did you see that?
I did see that. It looked really cool. Looked very secretive.
Did get a chance to do that. I walked by and Rob and Matt were in there waiting to do a demo with someone. I'm like, ooh, Rob and Matt. The expansions for Star Trek Ascendancy, the Ferengi Cardassians from Gale Force 9 were there, which I need to pick up. But then again, I also need to just play the base game. For
the Kardashians? What are the Kardashians doing in Star Trek?
Yes. I think you make this joke every time. No, incorrect. And then also there was an announcement for Game of Thrones Catan, which looked kind of interesting. So some other stuff we didn't see was Chris Home had asked whether or not we had played Wutai Mountain, the expansion for Motainai. I didn't see that. I didn't even go over to the Asmati booth the whole time I was there.
I didn't go over to their booth, but I do have one of their games that I got fresh from GenCon. Sean, have you ever heard of Win Lose Banana?
Yes. In fact, Len showed it to me on Wednesday night.
Did you play it?
Yeah, I did. And I heard you
Why
guys
don't you talk about that in
night.
recent plays?
I don't, because I forgot about it.
It's a $1 game. It includes a trader variant, 10 different modules, and an extensive rule book. But actually, really, it's just 3 cards. And it's a game of Win Lose Banana.
Yep.
Anyway, I got that, but I didn't see Wutai Mountain. So sorry, Chris.
Chris also wanted to know if we got to take a look at The Expanse, which we did not. Although I did just start reading the book literally this morning. I read the prologue this morning before we recorded. And actually kind of sad story, Alex. I've been reading the Dresden Files series. I just finished book 15, and I was under the impression that there was one more book already published, and there's not. So it was very sad, very disappointing. I have to wait like a year and change now for the next Dresden Files book.
It's rough being Sean.
It really is. But so far, the prologue of The Expanse, ooh, man, it got me.
All right, that's enough of Gen Con stuff. Man, was that place hectic. Man, oh man, way too much stuff going on. And I think it's possible I'll have a harder time seeing new stuff next year.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's very possible. Very possible. Okay, that's our Gen Con stuff, but of course we do a Kickstarter every week. And this week I wanted to talk about one called Steamrollers. Steamrollers. This is from Flatline Games, designed by Mark Garrett. And I don't know if we can call it a trend, Sean, or if it's just something I've noticed more of lately. This is a roll and write. It's a train-themed roll and write. Not exactly like Rollin' America. It's not like that. It's a little different than that. Effectively, you are building your own board, trying to deliver goods that are set on a communal board. If you can deliver goods to their proper regions, you'll get points for them, is the gist of it. You're going to be assigning dice, trying to improve the strength of your engine, trying to draw different lines on the board as well. It looks really interesting. I'll read the description. It's set in America, shortly after the first transcontinental junction in 1869. Railroads are developing over the vast expanses of the Wild West, and business is booming. It's a time of adventure, progress, and opportunity. The transcontinental junction was a great milestone in American history, a first step that reshaped a whole continent. In Steamrollers, you are a railroad entrepreneur building a network of tracks and a fleet of train engines to secure freight delivery contracts before your opponents. And as I mentioned, it's a roll and write game. You'll have a chance to draw rails on your board, improve your engines, do a little bit of research. Sean, where are you at with roll and writes these days in general, and does this one look interesting?
I love them. I love roll and writes. This one is $32 US. It's in euros. It's 27 euros, and it looks really cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go back it, actually.
Okay, we got an on-show back, which doesn't always happen. Yeah, and it describes itself as a little Steam-esque, is the idea of this.
Yeah, no, that's what it looks. Although I have to pay €8 to ship it here. Man.
42, Sean, $42.
About 41.
41. Okay.
That's kind of that price range where I'm comfortable with it. And it looks cool. So done. Backed it.
All right. And there's a lot of mini expansions that with stretch goals could get unlocked. They weren't quite yet as of the time of this recording. Right now, it's sitting at about almost $17,000 of its $12,000 goal. Campaign runs through September 21st, 2017. So Sean is on board. I'm not necessarily on board because I don't back stuff on Kickstarter. But I don't know if I needed to say that because, oh well, I felt the need to say it. Any case, that's Steamrollers, and that is our very long look at the news.
But hey, before we head on over to our featured review this week, let's take a quick look at the contest, one of the contests we were doing. We had an email contest where you were supposed to email to Sean@dukesofdice.com that Cheetos aren't Cheerios. Or was it Cheerios aren't Cheetos? I forget which the order was. It doesn't matter.
I think it was the first way you said it.
Okay, Cheetos aren't Cheerios. And you would get an extra entry if you could explain what that phrase meant. We had, I'd say about a third of the people knew what that meant. Basically, there was a game of Where Words we played at Dice Tower Con where I was giving the clue and it said Cheerios, but I saw Cheetos in my head because I was tired and sleepy. But anyway, we had 3 winners, and in the order of choice, so basically they're going to get to choose which they want. We have a copy of Downforce from Restoration Games. We have a copy, this is a package from Stronghold, Fuji Flush, Get the Cheese, and 5 cucumbers. And then we have a copy of Amun-Ra from TMG. So first choice of those prizes is going to be James Holzhauer. Congrats, James. I'll be sending you an email here shortly. Second choice is Conchetta A. Again, I've got your email address. And then finally, third choice is our buddy Cameron Gibson, who was actually one of the only of the 3 winners who actually benefited from the extra entry. He remembered what the story was. So
nicely done, Cameron.
So congrats to all 3 of you. We'll all be sending out those emails. And thanks again to Restoration Games, Stronghold Games, and TMG for those generous donations for our 3rd year anniversary contest. All right, let's do this, Alex. Let's head on over to our review. I'll be honest with everyone out there, I'm a little sad to see the Dukes of Dice going from a weekly podcast to a bi-weekly podcast, but that's okay, because there are a lot of amazing other board gaming podcasts. And with all the free time you now have not listening to a Dukes of Dice every single week, maybe you should check out the Tasty Minstrel Games podcast. The TMG podcast is hosted by the undead Viking himself, Lance Mixter. It comes out about every week and it packs quite a punch for a 30-minute podcast. So nice, short, to the point. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes discussion from Lance, from Michael Mendez, the CEO of Tasty Minstrel Games. They bring on a bunch of industry insiders. It's a great peek behind the curtain, so to speak, into the board gaming industry. Just in the last month, there's been GenCon discussion. Lance has had Joel Eddy onto the podcast. Lots of cool stuff here. A fantastic inside board gaming podcast. So you can find that where all great podcasts are found, iTunes, Stitcher, that whole deal. Also, be sure to check out all of Tasty Minstrel's amazing games over at playtmg.com. They had a fantastic initial release of hot new games at GenCon, including Jiraku and Okie Dokie. Plus, they have their amazing catalog. Playtmg.com has all the information you need to find some amazing board games. So be sure to check out playtmg.com and the TMG podcast.
Timeless stories, epic tales of betrayal, deception, and a fight for control over the city between warring families. Yes, it's a great series of movies, but is The Godfather, Corleone's Empire, an awesome game? We'll tell you.
So, to be fair, Alex, it's a great 2/3 of a series of movies.
Okay, fair.
Okay. Anyway, we're talking about The Godfather, Corleone's Empire, and this is designed by Eric Lang, published by CMON, art by Carl Kapinski. And this is a worker placement area control game where you are essentially trying to stuff money in a suitcase. You're trying to basically launder that money. That's what you're going to be adding up at the end of the game. Whoever has the most is the winner. But there's also some bonuses from area control elements of the different turfs. It's a map of Manhattan and some of the surrounding boroughs. There's also a set collection element where throughout the game you're completing various jobs, and whoever has the majority in these different types of jobs is going to score some bonus cash at the end of the game as well. Now, in a round, you're going to be alternating, placing your various quote unquote workers. You have two types. You have thugs and then you have family members. And in a 3, 4, or 5 player game, you start off with one family member and I believe 2 thugs. Now, the thugs go on to specific locations in the different turfs. And each turf will have usually one different business there, but throughout the course of the game, more businesses will get added to the different turfs. Now, a thug will go in, they'll kind of rough people up, and there's a front of house benefit that they get. It might be resources. So the basic resources are blood money, guns, and booze. Now, you can also go someplace, take an action that lets you take a money card from your hand, and there's a $1, $2, $3, and $5 money cards, and you could actually put them in your suitcase, which, again, they're kind of safe in there. And so, yeah, that's what the thugs do. They give you these front of house actions. Now, the family member doesn't get placed on one of these businesses. Instead, they get placed on these different circular locations that border the different turfs. And the cool thing is, when you place them, they get all of these back of house actions from all of the businesses, from all of the turfs that they're adjacent to. So there are some spots where you can place a family member and you'll be adjacent to 3 turfs and be able to benefit from all these different back of house actions. Basically, they're skimming action on the back end, right? Very, very thematic. So you're going about, you're collecting these different resources, you're maybe collecting some new job cards. There are some public job cards, and basically they're looking for either 1 resource of a certain type, 2 resources, or a 3rd resource. When you complete them, you'll get a certain amount of money, and then you'll get some sort of action that kind of breaks some rules or lets you do some special things. So for example, if you complete one of the gray jobs, which require guns, it lets you gun down your opponent's pieces in various degrees. So like, for example, I think the first level gray job just lets you like kill 2 different pieces, which you'll get back at the end of the game, but for area control, which we haven't talked about yet, that's kind of important. Whereas the top tier gray job is a car bomb, which basically blows up an entire turf, which is pretty crazy. The blood money jobs affect control in different ways. The booze jobs, and I'm being very careful there to say booze jobs, the booze jobs affect your ability to launder money. They give you bonuses for laundering money. Now, at the end of a round, there are some allies that you're going to be able to bid on, which kind of give you some extra abilities. Won't go too much into that. But then finally, we're going to be checking the different turfs to see who has more plastic figures of their color in each one of them. Whoever has the most in a given turf is going to put an area control marker down there. And whoever controls that in the next round may get the bonus back house actions whenever someone places a thug. Plus, at the end of the game, we're adding up all of the control markers in a given area because they stack on top of each other. And whoever has the most there is going to get the $5 bonus at the end of the game. All right. I think that's enough to kind of give you some framework for what we're talking about here. Anything I missed there, Alex?
That's the general gist of things. Yeah, no issues.
Okay. So, Alex, what are your general thoughts of The Godfather?
So there are certain games where the theme is, you don't care about the theme. It's kind of ancillary. It's a throwaway. Who cares? With this game, I think if this game didn't have this theme, I don't know if it would be on my radar at all or if I'd enjoy it at all. But because it has the right theme and the mechanics fit that theme, it's soaked in that theme so much, I tend to enjoy it more. It really boosts the flavor of this game. I enjoy a lot of it. I think it handles area control pretty well. My issues with it tend to be, I think in a lot of cases it feels like it overstays its welcome.
Oh.
That the rounds, yeah, that's where I end up on with this one. I don't know if you'll agree with this, Sean. You tend to have more tolerance for that kind of thing than I do. I will say in general, though, because of the thematic experience it provides and some of the component choices it makes, it's an altogether well put together package. I'm curious about how much I'll play this in the future, and we'll get into that when we get into gameplay. But that's my initial thoughts on this. What about you, Sean?
Okay. Yeah, so we have to talk about theme, right? Like, I know this isn't the portion where we do it, but obviously, like you mentioned, this is a theme that's definitely on my radar. I love The Godfather, right? Francis Ford Coppola, genius. This Godfather 1 and 2 are just brilliant, brilliant movies. I don't know that I've actually seen all of 3 in its entirety, but anyway, 1 and 2 are amazing. Mob movies in general, mob TV shows. One of my favorite movies is Goodfellas. Casino's up there. I love The Sopranos. So for whatever reason, I love this theme, right? Even with all of its violence and, drug use and whatever. I mean, it's kind of a terrible theme, but for whatever reason, I enjoy those movies. I enjoy this theme. I feel like I'm predisposed to like a game with this type of theme. At the end of the day, I don't feel like this was The Godfather. This was a generic mob-themed game to me. And certainly they made efforts, the card art, the different rounds of the game. It's 4 rounds, and they call them acts, right? And so there are different things that they say happen in these acts, but really, I don't know. I felt like it was just kind of a generic mob theme, which is fine on its own. I think I agreed with you a little bit that it kind of overstayed its welcome. There were a lot of things this game did right and a lot of things I enjoyed about it. And I think had I had less access to a bunch of different worker placement games, had I had less access to a bunch of different area control games, I think I would have enjoyed this a lot more. But ultimately, it's not doing a whole lot that I'm crazy about. And I don't know how memorable this game is going to be for me, even with a cool theme, even with cool stuff that it does, with, I would say, good art and I would say okay-ish components. So
interesting.
That's
okay.
where I come in.
We're a bit split on this one, I think, but I wouldn't be surprised if we end up in the same place. But let's talk through it. Okay,
so rulebook. Did Eric Lang actually teach you this game?
No. I did learn it at the CMON booth and ended up having to reset it up and teach it a few weeks later. I've actually played this one a bunch more before you ever even got a chance to get it to the table.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, I think the rulebook is pretty solid. I think it's surprisingly kind of a low rules overhead. And I think that having played a bunch of worker placement games, it was kind of easy to figure out what's going on. I taught a buddy of mine, Ethan, who is not a big gamer, and he had never played a worker placement game before. So I felt I had to okay, here's how worker placement works. These spaces are exclusive, first person to get to it, etc. But I think overall the rulebook was good. I think it was a solid rulebook. Great, fantastic art in the rulebook. So yeah, I think it's solid. The components art. I already talked about the art. I enjoyed the art. The component quality, I think, is all solid. You have these nice PVC plastic miniatures for your different workers. Those were cool. Different sculpts for the different family members.
Yeah, and they all had unique names in the rulebook. Each of those family members has a specific name tied to the movie, which I thought was a cool thematic touch.
Right. And then you have these really nice tins, which are basically your suitcases. So you're able to put your money in there and also your completed jobs. I thought that was really cool. I think component-wise, I think it's a very solid production. Good, well, no, actually, that's not true. I was going to say good card quality. Now I'm remembering. And not good card quality. We were playing with an unsleeved copy. And after, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 plays of this game, the black backs were really getting worn thin. So you need to sleeve it. The card quality wasn't great. Other than that, I think component quality was fine. I didn't like how this game looked on the table, if that makes sense. It seemed busy, and it just seemed, I don't know, there's something jarring about its table presence that just kind of was off-putting for me. And I think that's why when I saw you playing as much as you did right after Dice Tower Con, I'd walk by the table, and I was just kind of turned off by the way it looked. Even though individually all the components, with the exception of the cards, are great, for some reason it was the sum of all of those parts was less than the individual parts, if that makes sense.
And that's really interesting because I have a different take on some of this stuff. Where I agree with you is I think the tin that they use where you're storing your money, that suitcase, is a really cool component. I always love when there's this just even one thing that's cool and unique about a game. And that suitcase to me fit the bill. The minis, I'm not the best judge of minis. You're more of the mini fanatic. To me, they fit right in, looked really cool. You have the ones for the different generic, the neutral guys that you can get as allies, the police officer. Those all looked great. I thought those were great, and I like the thematic touches with it. What I will say is the look of the buildings themselves can give it a bit of a busy appearance. They're red. The iconography is clear with the game in my mind, but it can be tricky to tell sometimes, sorry, that's a front of house benefit, not a back of house benefit. And in teaching the game, that got confused quite a few times in terms of, am I doing this now? Or am I doing this? What's exactly going on? So I get what you're saying. I like the layout of the city. The trick was sometimes it was tough to tell where a guy was controlling or easily count up and see who has control over this zone or who has control over this zone. And as a result of that, I can see where you're coming from. I didn't get quite as off-put by the table presence, but I think there are some practical gameplay pieces of things that get covered up a little bit or aren't as clear as I'd like them to be, just based on the production. So I see what you're saying. I definitely see what you're saying with a lot of it. I don't know if I agreed that it was so off-putting, though.
Okay. Yeah, and that's just a preference thing, I guess. And again, I can't even pinpoint what it was. Like, for example, the way that they lay out Manhattan and the surrounding boroughs worked, right? Like, it was very clean. The delineations of the lines were solid. It worked. It absolutely worked. But for whatever reason, the table presence was just jarring for me. I can't say why. But so, what about gameplay? I mean, would you agree that this is essentially a worker placement game with some different ways to use workers and then area control on top of it? Area control, which you love.
It depends on the game. I don't know if I love area control.
Well, I was being sarcastic.
Then yes. Then correct. You have correctly sarcastically spoken what you spoke. Wow, that was awkwardly phrased.
Sure was.
So, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So, as far as the worker placement area control pieces of it, yeah, that's the big thing in the game. I think the couple of elements that come to the fore as you're playing this are a big sense of take that, because, hey, that car bomb has to target someone or has to target some region. Or, hey, I got to steal money from somebody's hand. Now, what I'll say is, in nothing personal, that was completely off-putting to me. And in a lot of cases, that kind of take that can be completely off-putting to me. I did not get that experience with this game because of how it worked thematically. Now, in fairness, nothing personal also works thematically on that front. And maybe it was just the open-ended nature of it, the open-ended deal-making, and it felt very, very personal and nothing personal to me. In this one, I got a little steamed at one point, I think, but it didn't have anywhere near the same effect on me as maybe those did. And that could be me changing as a person, or it could be just how the game handles it. I don't know for sure. I will say that the take that in this game felt thematic and actually fun, as opposed to a drag, which in a lot of cases it can feel like a drag to me and my style of play. So I think that's a positive notch for the game. The one thing with this is because of the nature of it, because once you've played out your miniatures in front of you, your turn is over, your round is over, the game is encouraging, highly encouraging, really efficient play. It wants you to combo things. It wants you to chain into things. It wants you to complete this job so you can complete this other job. It doesn't want you to have a lot of wasted cards in your hand at the end of a round, which is very possible. I've seen someone with 10, 15, 20 cards in their hand at the end of a round and have to discard a whole bunch of them. So I like the interesting decisions you get in terms of how do I be most efficient with this? How do I maneuver around with this? How do I place here to get enough goods to make this happen, then this happen? And what could my opponents do that might screw this thing up? Hey, how can I wrest control of this area from someone in an unexpected way? How can I sneak attack? How can I make my round last a little bit longer so that I'm still there playing and can more clearly make decisions as opposed to just putting something out there and hoping it's still there by the end of the round? I think all of those decisions are really interesting. And then you add on that the allies, having that as a card in your hand, it takes up space, but it gives you some benefit and it extends your turn. Is it more valuable to have that or a high-value money card or a goods card? The other thing with this one, Sean, is scarcity. Goods scarcity, at least in my plays of this, became a huge thing, and certainly at the higher player counts, because those goods are limited, and a lot of times you're waiting for someone to play something out of their hand so you can then go to a space and scoop up that same thing.
Right.
It's got a lot going on here in a not-so-complicated way. I think that, by the way, I didn't mention this in components. I like how the game board kind of runs you through the phases in a cool way. It has all of the rules laid out there in a clear-to-understand fashion. I like how smooth this one feels compared to other types of these games. I like that there's that much going on. That being said, I've said like 15 different thoughts, so I'm going to let Sean jump in here for a second. But I had another thought on why it overstays its welcome that I'll get to in a bit. But Sean, anything in that soliloquy I just had that struck you?
Well, real quick, that's your news reporter anchor kicking in. I'll tell you more why this game feels too long
after the break. Yep.
I'd agree with a lot of what you said. Like, there's a lot of things this game does right. There's a lot of interesting decisions. The timing, the tempo of the game, wanting to, instead of using a worker, you can complete a job from hand or from one of the public jobs, right? And so that gives you some delay because there's an interesting tension. I want to be first to get to a certain spot like you would in a lot of worker placement games, but I also want to place my workers late so I can have a better feel for how the area control element is going to play out at the end of a round. That in and of itself, I think, is an amazing tension point, right? Play early to get the stuff that you want, but play late to have better control over who's going to control the different turfs. I think that's brilliant. And I think that's a really hard thing to deal with. So I liked that. And I liked some of the take that stuff because it was it could be mild. And sometimes it was just like, well, yeah, obviously you're going to target my guy here with this completed gray job because I'm beating you in the area control if we get to the end of the round. So that made sense. There were never any times when I got really upset by any of the take that stuff. Certainly you had to be prepared. So for example, the big booze job, the 3 booze job says take, is it 2 or is it 3 money cards from someone's suitcase and put them into your hand?
I don't remember.
It was 2 or 3. I can't remember. So obviously you want to put a bunch of 5s into your suitcase, but knowing that those cards are out there, if all I have in my suitcase are 5s and I have to give my opponent 2 or 3 5s, that's devastating. So I need to also put some 1s, some 2s, just some kind of filler stuff to protect against that. And I want to have some of those lesser values too, because that's how I'm bidding for the different allies at the end of the rounds too. So lots of interesting stuff there. And I like the set collection element, right? Because there are basically 4 types of jobs. There are the 3 related to the 3 types of booze, and then there's the I can't remember the name of the cards, but they're the blue jobs, which require 1 of each.
Right.
And I'm blanking on what that's called. And you have to kind of commit to say, well, I'm only going to try and complete 2 types of jobs or maybe 3 types of jobs, because otherwise I'm going to have no shot at winning any of the end game scoring for a majority of jobs. And when you do that, you're kind of cutting yourself off of one line of play, right? So if I say I'm not going to do gray jobs, it means I'm not killing other people's henchmen or thugs or family members. Or if I'm not doing the booze jobs, it means that I'm going to have a harder time suitcasing money, so I'm going to have to do that in other ways as well. And I like that, and I think that's interesting. And the other thing we haven't talked about, too, is the ever-expanding businesses, right? Because as the game goes on, each round you place out a new business, and you're not going to see the same businesses every game. So there's like one spot that will give you a suitcase action and a drug, because a drug is basically a wild resource that you may not see in the course of a given game. But certainly when it comes out, that can be very powerful. Those wilds are really solid. So, like I said, a lot of things I like about this game. So what's your brilliant insight here, Alex?
I wanted to talk about something else first that came to mind, because you just talked about I know.
This better be good. By the time you get to it, it better be amazing, because you're building it up here.
You talked about the buildings coming out in different orders, different games. You'll see different buildings. The variability of this game is in that, and it's in the different allies. You won't see the same allies every game. That's the main way to make the game variable enough. And my question with it broadly, and I don't know the answer to this, is will this thing lose? Is this an evergreen enough? Is this something that people are going to be playing, say, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now? And I'm not dead sure about that, to be honest with you, Sean. I don't know where you fall on that. I tend to think, as big of a theme as this is, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it for the next few months at least, I don't know if come next year at this time, it's going to be in our minds. What do you think about this?
I think you might be right. So I think the big point of comparison here is to a game like Blood Rage. Another Lang Design, another CMON game. Instead of worker placement area control, it was card drafting area control, right? And so in my mind, I think Blood Rage has the better staying power. I think Blood Rage has the better variability, especially with all the Kickstarter stuff, right? That all being said, some of the shine of Blood Rage had kind of faded for me. I originally given it a 5, and our double take, I dropped it down to a 4, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure it was a 4. And I'll tell you right now, I like Blood Rage more than I like this game, even though I like this theme a lot more. So I agree. I think this game will necessarily be on our radar compared to other games of its type.
And the question is that the best judge of a game? Right? I mean, there's something to be said about a game that lasts a long time on the shelf and you want to play it over and over is awesome. But we've also seen this move towards impermanence in games. And I don't know if that's a necessary factor, but I think it is worth knowing for folks, especially folks whose game buying dollars tend to be pretty limited, as to what that might look like or how long this might last.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to have the staying power. I just don't. It doesn't have the amazing miniatures that a game like Blood Rage has. And certainly there are games where you can play it 3 or 4 times and be like, yeah, I really enjoyed that experience. I'm glad I played them. I'm not going to necessarily play this game again. Doesn't mean I hate it. It's not something I'm going to want to pull out. And not every game can be that. It can't be that game that you're going to keep coming back to every time. But I certainly think that's an important consideration here. So I played 3 and 4 player counts. You played 5.
I played all player counts.
Oh, you played 2?
Not 2. Sorry, not all. Dang it. Dang it.
Okay.
That was going to be a Dutchie first.
Yeah, no. Sadly I didn't get to play 2. I'm not crazy about 2-player area control unless it's actually designed to be 2-player area control. But what did you think of the 5-player count?
Too many people at the table. It is sort of where it comes down. It's not that the turns themselves are long, but you can get these moments of AP where you're trying to plan out, okay, I've got these family members left, I've got these job cards in hand, where do I need to place, what do I need to do this? And with 5 at the table, it just becomes too much. And even at 4, it could feel a little long on that front. So I probably wouldn't want to play this one at 5.
Would you refuse?
I would. I'd be pretty close to. I'd be pretty close to refusing. It drags. And this amazing reason why it drags, Sean, is because of the combo-y nature of the game. The fact that someone's round can end way, way sooner than another person's. And there could be a situation where you're sitting at the table and people have 3 or 4 more turns and you don't have anything else to do. You're just kind of sitting and watching. And oftentimes watching as your guys are getting chucked into the Hudson River. So... Right. Yeah, and that causes it to drag a bit. The decisions, some of the AP that can come up causes it to drag a bit. That's my Nobel Prize winning piece of game criticism right there.
It was kind of interesting, and by the way, brilliant analysis, just brilliant.
Thank you.
So the last game I played with Curtis, the last round or the last act of the game, every single one of his pieces was in the Hudson. And keep in mind, you get access to more family members as the game goes on. Every single one of his pieces was killed off that last act.
Wow.
Just this huge pile of dead purple pieces in the Hudson River. It was kind of crazy. Very, very much so. Very much so. And yeah, I feel like there are some times where it's like, okay, cool, I take this action, I get these 3 cards, I'm done. And then the next person is doing all this kind of, combo-y stuff. I would agree with that. And I would also say, going back to the player count, is even the 3 and 4 player games were very different experiences. Very different. I don't know that I have a preference of one over the other. The 3 felt very open. It very often felt like, okay, someone took this spot I wanted to use. That's fine. I could take this spot instead. In 4, I felt more often that it was, okay, I want this spot. Shoot, they took it. That's fine because my next choice would be this. Oh, that got taken. All right. Third option, oh, that got taken too. And that's a common thing that happens in worker placement games, but I felt it a lot more in the 4 players than the 3 players because there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of area control scaling at the different player counts. So, any other thoughts on gameplay before we move on to theme, Alex?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
So, I did not feel, and I mentioned this at the beginning, that I was playing a Godfather game. I felt like I was playing a mob game, and it was certainly a very thematic experience. There was certainly a level of immersion. However, when I compare this to an all-time Alex favorite, Nothing Personal, dripping with sarcasm, I don't get that same feeling that I get from Nothing Personal. And mechanically, they're very different games. Very, very different. So in that sense, it's not a fair comparison. But when I'm doing this wheeling and dealing, when you're manipulating this power structure that's in Nothing Personal, when you're, offing other characters on the board, when one of you is wearing the capo ring and is getting to decide how ties are broken, which happen all the time, and there's bribing and there's all sorts of things, I get a much more immersive experience from Nothing Personal. I don't have anyone that wants to play with me because it's such a mean game. It is super mean. You have to have incredibly thick skin. It is like one step down from diplomacy mean. But I love it. I love that immersive experience. Here, it's like, oh, yeah, we're kind of playing a mob game, and these cards make sense, and these action makes sense, and it makes sense that you're sending one of your thugs to rough up the front end of the business, but also you've got your family members skimming off the back end. That makes sense. It's thematically, it's solid. There is so much of this game in my mind that is just incredibly adequate. It is like an incredibly adequate game in my mind, and I feel bad saying that. But even the theme, I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. It works. But it doesn't make me feel like I'm in a mob movie, if that makes sense. And maybe that's too high of a standard, but that's just where I come down.
And I tend to think it fits a little bit better than you do. Now, keeping in mind, my guess is you've seen The Godfather. How many times have you seen the first two movies?
3 or 4.
Okay, I think I've seen them. The first one I think I've seen twice. The second one I've seen once.
Okay.
And so, as far as the Godfather-averse, so to speak,
the extended Godfather cinematic
exactly.
universe, yeah.
I don't think I'm quite as well versed on the finer points of plot. And so maybe for me, it feeling like a mob game is good enough on theme.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And because it feels like a mob theme, it feels like a Godfather game to me. It has the horse's head. It has the take the cannoli. It has all of these different references. It has the individually named family members, the acts with the names, whether you see that as a throwaway or not, it's there. The bribing different people, bribing the different officials, which I think in some form or fashion is in the movie, if I'm remembering right. It all feels there. I actually think, to me, because it's a Godfather game, and because a lot of people are attracted to that theme, even though this game is not gateway level, I think it's going to help bring more people to the hobby. And I think thematically it succeeds on that front. It makes the take that feel fun because, all my guys are sleeping with the fishes. I don't know how Curtis felt when all of his purple pieces were in the river, but I remember laughing a lot in those situations, even when it was hurting me. And I think it's because the theme makes it feel like it's The Godfather, and hey, that's what happens when families are warring over a city. It feels like you're fighting for control over a city, and that's what the Godfather movies felt like to me. And as a result, it ultimately felt like a pretty cohesive thematic experience. I actually think it's one of the high points of the game, is how it succeeds on theme.
Interesting. Yeah. I think every point you made there is perfectly valid. I don't know how much of an influence Nothing Personal. I think it had a huge influence, right? I love what that game captures. And for whatever reason, the whole Godfather theme just kind of fell flat for me, even though I love the movies. So
I think if Nothing Personal had a Godfather theme, I still would not like it.
Oh, of course not. Oh, absolutely not. No. But no, I mean, I want to watch the movies again now. So if nothing else, at least had enough of that thematic connective tissue to make me want to watch the movie this weekend. All right, well, let's go into our final thoughts. We use a 6-point rating system here on the Dukes of Dice. A 1 is a game that's poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. A 6 is an all-time favorite that is a contender for the top 10. And I'm going to settle on a 3. Game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. I am predicting right now that I'll never think to suggest this game. It's just not going to happen. There are other games that do worker placement that I enjoy better. There are other games that do area control that I enjoy better. There is another game that gives me a mob feel that does it better. So in that sense, I'm not going to think to bring this out. I'm certainly not going to refuse to play it. If we've got the right player count and someone's like, hey, you want to play The Godfather? I'd be like, yeah, okay. Like if that's where the consensus is, sure, I will happily play it. So It's a 3. We'll play in the right situation. Okay, not exciting.
I will agree with you on it needs the right player count. So a 3 or 4 player count, I would not play this with 5 again. And 2 doesn't sound appealing. I'm sure it does some interesting things, but for my money, 3 or 4 would probably be the way to go with this game. I debated on this score for a bit, Sean. I was between a 3 and a 4 with this one, and I think I ultimately just barely settled on a 4.
Oh, okay.
A good game, worth playing just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. The one thing that pushed it over in between the two.
Was it to be contrarian to me?
No, it was not. I made this decision earlier in the review. I mean, sure, it always helps when we're on different pages with something. But I think as folks listen to the review, there's reasons we're on different pages with this one.
Yeah.
And that thematic experience and the fact that you're going to be more likely to, hey, you want to play the Godfather versus, hey, you want to play El Grande, especially with someone who doesn't know just how good El Grande is, I think you're going to be more likely to get this one to the table with newer gamers. Not new gamers, but newer gamers. That theme gives it its place in the collection for me. The look of it, the feel of it, and the interesting things it does. I love how it uses that suitcase mechanic. I enjoy that there's so many interesting, tricky decisions that you run into with this game, and I like that it can take that feel fun. It does have its issues. It overstays its welcome in some cases. I'm not always a huge fan of the total look of it, and it's not something I'm crazy about. It's not something I'm going to suggest. But it does fall on that lower end of a 4. A good game worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy.
All right, very cool. That's going to do it for the Duke's review of The Godfather, a 3 from Sean and a 4 from Alex. But before we move on to our double take, we want to talk about some more contests. So we had, in our 3-year anniversary episode, we redid our top 10 lists, which has been the Duchy tradition since the beginning, really. And so we asked people to give us their top 10 lists in the guild. And then we randomly selected 3 winners. We've got 3 games to give away. We've got Guilds of London from TMG. We've got Argent the Consortium from Level 99 Games. And then we've got a copy of Viral from Arcane Wonders. So 3 random names, same thing as before, where basically first choice, second choice, third choice, randomly picked. Our first choice is Nathan M. Kane 74. Congrats, you're going to get your first choice of picks among those 3. Second choice, Jason Lees, also known as Mursa Major on BGG. And then finally, third choice goes to Mark Cruzen Ray, also known as Stangray on BGG. So congrats to all of you, and thank you again to TMG, Arcane Wonders, and Level 99 Games for that generous support.
I'm happy so many people seem to have fun with that because we had 100 responses on that thread, which is pretty cool that enough folks took the time to think about their top 10, which is not an easy thing to do, as both of us know, Sean.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm happy people took the time to hop in and give that a try.
In fact, a lot of them, said, well, I've never actually sat down and done this, and here we go. So I think it was a cool exercise for a lot of people, and it was kind of cool to see. You can tell, like, oh, this person probably is part of the 15%. This person has a pretty close list to Sean. It was definitely cool to see. And by the way, the other contest that was part of the top 10 was Guessing Mine, where we announced the winner last week, our buddy Jake from Draft Mechanic. I actually delivered Lisboa to him at GenCon, which is very nice because it would have cost me like $1,000 to ship it probably, because that box is heavy. It is a heavy box, Alex. But yeah, so that worked out. But anyway, again, thanks everyone for participating in those contests.
I was heartened to see Baseball Highlights 2045 on enough lists. Yeah. Made me smile. That's the first mention, by the way. Just throwing that out there. First mention.
Oh, excellent. All right, well, let's head on over to our Duke's Double Take.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Duke's Double Take.
All right, Sean, we're going to start off this section with a correction because it's not a Duke's Double Take, it's a Duke's Quadruple Take.
Oh, my apologies.
Yes, you've derailed everything, sir, and you should be sorry about it. First one we're going to talk about is from episode 103, Hide and Go Reap. And the game we reviewed that week was Scythe from St. Louis publisher Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier. So, at the time, we gave this one straight boxcars, 6 and a 6. 6 and a 6. And not much doubt about it. This was on both of our top 10 lists, so it's still a 6. Sean, what has this thing done that's had it hold up as well as it's held up?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's so many positives about this game. The production is amazing, right? The art is amazing. The art was the basis for the whole game, right? Jamie saw this art and said, I want to make a game based around this art. And it's just amazing. Jacob's art is just incredible. And then you have just incredibly solid gameplay. You have simple actions, and it's got this nice Euro feel, this nice resource management. You've got that threat of combat, so it scratches a bit of that Kemet itch. I mean, obviously Kemet's my number one game, and this doesn't quite reach that level for me, but it's just amazing. There was virtually no time someone would say, hey, let's play Scythe, that I would turn them down. I mean, I just love it. I think it's just a fantastic game. I'm excited for, the new airships expansion. I just have so much more to explore with this game. I know some people say there might be some like scripted opening moves, and that might be true to a certain extent, but it's still a puzzle. Every time it's a puzzle, you're constantly reacting to what other people are doing. A lot of people will say, oh, it's just kind of multiplayer or solitaire until people fight. I disagree. You have to be aware of what everyone is doing. And when that final star drops, you need to be ready for it. So, yeah, it's still a 6, solid 6, still a top 10 game. I love it.
Yeah, I think you laid out a lot of the case I would make for the game. The production is immersive, straight up immersive. It brings you into this game. You mentioned the scripted opening moves. I think what helps avoid that are the encounters. If you're grabbing an encounter, it's going to steer you in a pretty different direction right off the bat. And your goal is to try and find that most efficient path forward from there. And yeah, it is responding to opponent situations. If someone's leaving a bunch of resources exposed, maybe you want to position yourself to try and snag those right out from under them and build something in the same turn. So it fires on all cylinders in so many ways. It helps that I haven't lost this yet. I know I keep saying that, and I'm half worried that Jamie is going to put me in touch with the world champion of Scythe, and I'm going to be in big trouble because I am writing a check with my mouth that I don't think my skills at the game can cash. But at the same time, I still have found something that's clicked with this one for me, and a game that we've said before, I did not expect to enjoy, and I ended up enjoying a lot. Love Scythe.
So, Alex, what did the guild have to say about Scythe? Anything at all?
Quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. And pretty much all of it in line with what we've been saying. So Blaine Miley says, Scythe remains a favorite due to the efficiency, puzzle, and production quality. I think the game successfully makes the threat of combat more prominent than actual combat, which some may like and some may dislike. And I fall into the category of, I like it.
Sure.
Although I do tend to be more combative than most in my strategy.
Uncharacteristically for you, I think, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Certainly interesting. So James Holzhauer says, I still like Scythe, but I have some problems getting it to the table, especially since I do not play games at home. So setup time is more of a concern for me, but I do really want to play this game and still like it overall.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, we are still playing and loving Scythe. It still has stand-up moments every game, still gets me crunching the decisions to get the right sequence of actions so that I don't finish last again. It's still top 3 for me for 2016 and an easy choice for a 6 on the Ducal scale.
And then Ben Ogden says, my wife and I love Scythe. We don't play it nearly enough. We may be in the minority, but we even enjoy it at 2. No, there isn't as much conflict, but you're still making important decisions. Our group of friends isn't as into deep strategy games, so we don't get to play it at a higher count as often as we would like. A solid 5 on the scale for us, though it's close to a 6 for my wife.
Brian Weiss, maybe on the other side of this one, though. He says, Scythe has its faults. Namely, the setup is cumbersome, the optimal opening moves are semi-scripted, and endgame can feel anticlimactic. However, this is easily a 6 for me. The game is just fun as I think about how to best plan my actions and expand my territory. It scales really well, and downtime is minimal even at higher player counts thanks to straightforward actions. The mech abilities and special powers of the factions give each player a different flavor. And of course, the production value is spectacular and functional. The 2 new factions in the first expansion gives the game even more replayability, and the upcoming expansion looks to improve the endgame situation. Scythe has earned its spot in my collection, and I don't see it ever leaving.
All right, so essentially universal praise from the guild. But it's interesting because I know there's plenty of people out there that can really hate on Scythe, but I have absolutely enjoyed all of my experiences with it.
Yeah, and I think overall the positive opinions tend to way outweigh the negatives, as this one is currently sitting number 8 of all time on BGG.
Yeah, no, that's really impressive. All right, well, let's move away from Scythe to a different game, Via Nebula, which we reviewed back in episode 105, which we titled Fog of Warlock. And this is a Martin Wallace game. Big fan of Martin Wallace, but this is kind of a more entry-level, more accessible game. Cutesy art. It's still shared kind of connection route building and then getting resources from one place to another to build these different buildings. At the time we reviewed this, Alex, you gave it a 3. You said, I can't think of a situation where I'd break this out and the MSRP is steep. I gave it a 3 and I said, I'm okay, never playing this game again, but I suppose I will in the right situation. So yeah, pair of 3s from us on this. And Alex, have you played it in the last year?
Nope.
Have you thought about it in the last year?
Nope.
Yeah, me too. I will say I've thought about it. When I've seen someone break it out, I'll be like, nope, I have no interest in playing that. For me, I'm not prepared to drop it to a 2 because there is certainly a time where I could play it. It's fine. It's a fine game. And I mean, I think we reviewed Quadropolis around the same time, and they both kind of felt of a similar weight to me. Quadropolis, I would not play again. I would just refuse. Via Nebula, I'd play again. So I'd keep it at a 3. Game is okay, not exciting. We'll play in the right situation. What about you, Alex?
So full disclosure here, my new employer has a Martin Wallace game in the line, and we're fairly close with him.
Okay.
That being said, it doesn't change my thoughts on the game. I forgot about it and haven't had an urge to play it again. And that means it's going straight up to a 6, Sean. No, just kidding. No. It's a 3. It's still a 3.
Not going to drop it to a 2.
No, it's not in the refuse to play category. There, again, as you were saying, I think you described it perfectly in exactly how you said this. The game is fine. I mean, that's where my thoughts are on this. It's fine. There's nothing offensive about it. It doesn't do anything that makes me upset with it. It's just not something I care to play or would think about playing. That's all. So that doesn't make it a 2. It makes it a 3. It makes it a 3. And yeah, that's where I stand on it.
So we had one comment over in the guild. Kenny Owen said, Via Nebula was good. I do think the lighter theme was refreshing and more interesting than the train theme for me personally. The public goals create a nice tension to complete routes first. I am not chomping at the bit to play again, but pick up and deliver isn't my favorite mechanism. I think a year later, this lands at a 3 for me.
We're all on the same page today. Guild and Dukes are united, which is not always the case.
No, seldom. But that's cool. All right, well, that's going to do it for our Duke's quadruple take. But
excuse me, friend. Excuse me. Hello.
Oh boy, it's you again. The lazy friendly Shoggoth, or the phone it in friendly Shoggoth.
Where I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, friendly Shoggoth, how you doing there, buddy?
Hello, Sean. Hello, friends. It's me, the friendly Shoggoth here. How are you?
I'm great. Where are you actually calling in from?
So here's a fun fact for you. I don't know if you knew this, but Panera was originally known as the St. Louis Bread Company.
Oh, was it really?
Yes. In fact, if you go to a Panera location here in the fine city of St. Louis, you will find that it's actually called the St. Louis Bread Company.
Oh, interesting. Your face tentacles are doing some weird stuff right now. So
that's
wait,
the humidity.
So are you saying you're in St. Louis?
I'm giving Alex a visit. I hope he's done with this recording soon so I can go see him.
Oh, okay. Because it's interesting. You guys are always like in the same location, but I never see you two together. So it's just curious is all I'm saying.
Look, I have to get back to my actual Panera, which is called Panera, and it's located in Pittsburgh.
Oh, what? Okay. Pittsburgh? Were you trying to say Pittsburgh?
No, I was saying Pittsburgh.
Okay. Sorry. So, is there something I can do for you, friendly Shoggoth? Because we're kind of light on time here. We're trying to wrap this up.
Well, I heard you were reaching out to some of my family members, and I would love to hear from them.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah. So if I recall correctly, friendly Shoggoth, and it's hard to remember because whenever you're around, there's this like soporific effect that you have on me. I mean, it's some elder thing. I don't know. So, but if I remember correctly, we were doing a contest to have your family members call in to our Google Voice number and let us know what's going on in their neck of the Shoggoth woods, so to speak.
Are you Al Roker?
No, I'm not. I'm not Al Roker. But wow.
I'm a big fan of his. He's a very friendly guy.
Well, sure. That makes perfect sense. So, Friendly Shoggoth, we had Michael Farenbrook summon another Friendly Shoggoth, and let's have a listen.
Hello, friends. This is the somewhat Friendly Shoggoth. You may know my son, the Friendly Shoggoth. He tells me you're all a bunch of great folks here. Or at least that 18% of you are. Yeah, Friendly has always had just a little more follow-through than me. I had the idea to start a Panera franchise when I was still in middle school, but I never got around to it. Life was just too busy building for the elder beings and then serving one cult leader after another, each one trying to bring a great old... Like Hoster, Ithaqua, or Cthulhu, all will tremble before the terrible sight of Cthulhu. Sorry about that outburst. Here, please accept this offer for a free meal at my son's Panera. Use code X6. Of course, don't actually try to pronounce that or it might drive you mad. And we wouldn't want that.
So, Michael, for your tremendous summoning skills, we're going to give you a first choice of a pick between Guilds of London from Tasty Minstrel Games or Flip Ships from Renegade Game Studios. So hopefully, Michael, you didn't have any issues with the somewhat Friendly Shoggoth and getting him, out of the picture before he got too destructive.
He only drives you somewhat mad.
Perfect. Well, we had another person that managed to summon another Friendly Shoggoth in his summoning circle, and that's Jimmy DM90. Let's take a listen.
Hello, this is Elderly Shoggoth. I hear you've been speaking with my grandson, Friendly. He's a bit simple, and for that I apologize, but he makes us so very proud with his Panera and the confections that he makes there. I could tentacle them up. Well, anyway, I'm currently living on the coast, Seattle. I work at a Starbucks, and, well, retirement didn't sit very well with me, so now I've had to find work. But anyway, I just wanted to call to let you know that you're doing a fabulous job. And keep it friendly. Have a happy Dukeversity.
All right, well, Jimmy, I hope that didn't cause too much trouble for you either, but you're going to get the second choice of Flip Ships or Guilds of London. So thanks all of you other amazing summoners, or again, shummoners, for calling those other Friendly Shoggoths. What we're going to do in future weeks is we're going to play some of those after the end of the credits. So be sure to listen for the other Friendly Shoggoths. So, Friendly Shoggoth, was it good to hear from some of these family members of yours?
Well, it's been a long time since we've had a Shoggoth reunion.
Okay. Is there one planned?
Yes, it's going to be in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, that's perfect. It's not too muggy down there for you?
It messes with my face, but I love the family-friendly feel, because I'm the Friendly Shoggoth.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you, Friendly Shoggoth, for, I guess, arranging this contest. I didn't know
you're...
Oh, Alex, is that you? I hear laughing and...
Oh, sorry, I stepped out for a little bit. What's been going on here?
Just some high theater.
Oh,
Excuse me.
Fantastic.
Theater.
Ah, yes. Theater of the mind.
Theater of something.
Okay, great.
Well, that just about covers it for... Well, no, that does. That absolutely covers it for all the contests. And let's wrap this episode up, Alex, shall we?
Yeah, well, the rest of the top six. We always like doing that. So, first up, BJ from Board Game Gumbo with Spaced Invaders, referencing Via Nebula's space theme, and the invaders you get in both Scythe and Invasion of Space in Godfather, Corleone's Empire.
Yes. Mike White suggested Horsehead Nebula, which makes perfect sense, because there is such a... What is it, the Horseshoe Nebula? Wait, what is it? Is it the Horsehead Nebula? Right? That's the actual name of it?
Yeah,
I think it is. And, of course, there's the Horsehead in The Godfather, and Via Nebula. Means perfect, right?
Yep. John Giblin with Leave the Gun, Take the Con Oli, referencing GenCon as well as The Godfather. Nicely done.
And then Ben Ogden suggested an offer you can't reuse, which is, of course, similar to an offer you can't refuse from The Godfather, but also referring, and this is a bit of a stretch, Ben, but it works. You can't reuse the same action twice in a row inside. So
I like it. I like the very subtle reference. It was
very,
nice. Yeah.
very subtle.
And then finally, one of our Wham boys, Matt Walker, wrapped up the top 6. Wham! With Hexes and Hoodlums. Nicely
Which,
done.
of course, hexes referring to the hexes in Scythe and Via Nebula, and the hoodlums in Godfather. So well done, Matt.
Very good. All right, that's going to do it for episode 157. Congrats to Kyle Kelly, first-time namer with the Fogfather. And Sean, it's a little weird. I'm not going to be talking to you for 2 weeks because you're going to be ignoring all my wonderful St. Louis posts.
We'll just talk about stuff other than St. Louis.
But I don't want to.
Well, get on it. Yeah, so this is going to be a little weird. We're not going to have an episode next week because we're going forward to the bi-weekly format. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, and it's just the new normal, Alex. A lot of adjustments, a lot of changes. Yeah, I knew that was coming. All right, well, that's going to do it then for the episode. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And I'll duke you later.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on August 26, 2017. Our theme music is provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com, and for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsor, Tasty Minstrel Games. You can check out all their awesome titles at PlayTMG.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on!